By now, Battlefield 1 has run its course, but that doesn't stop it from being an endlessly entertaining product, at least for me. To that end, I just wanted to make a short list of weapons which I really enjoy using Battlefield 1, not necessarily due to their statistical benefits, but simply because I really like using them. Some of these weapons on the list are actually favorites of mine, but some of them are actually not, and I haven't really used them all that much, but I just know that they just feel fantastic to use, purely from an audio-visual perspective, and also how well they are animated. But I feel these are a cut above the rest, not necessarily in the way they play, but really in the way they feel. First, but definitely not least, is a community favorite, the Martini Henry. The Martini Henry has a almost cannon-like sound when being fired, and this is incredible when paired with its single-shot nature. When the gun is fired inside, it just blows your eardrums out, but in a good way. While the weapon itself is a very simple and Spartan looking thing with two holes in either side, one for the bullet to come out and the other to go in, perhaps this simplicity actually adds to its flavor. It's a very outdated weapon even for the Great War standards, but it just wrecks people in Battlefield 1 with those gigantic 5.77 rounds. But more importantly, its sound is just out of this world, to the point that many people crave a weapon like this in Battlefield 5. It just sounds perfect. The way the sound just reverberates around the map, the sudden cannon-like, as I said earlier, the cannon-like nature of the gunshot itself, it's just bloody brilliant, and whoever designed this weapon really needs a promotion. The Perino is awesome not because it has a spectacular firing sound like the Martini Henry, but quite the opposite really, it is as complex as it gets. It has a gigantic hopper on the left side of the gun, holding 6 20-round strips for a total of 120 rounds in reserve. When each strip is fired, it goes through the gun, which you can actually see in the animation, where it just then falls on the ground with an accompanying sound effect, which I'm not sure if it is reflected by the surface it drops on. I think that would be a little too crazy, but regardless, it's very impressive looking. The Perino itself is a very impressive looking gun. It's a huge 27 kilogram heavy machine gun, which has no right being ran around with in Battlefield 1, but being a Battlefield game, accuracy, or rather the way weapons are used, is not a priority, and this is something I'm very thankful for. In fact, something I did not mention is that when the weapon is reloaded, whilst a strip has not fed through the gun, the gunner, or rather the player character, will simply remove the strip by hand and then add others to the hopper. And this is such an amazing reload system, I just can't run out of things to say about the Perino. I said I won't be talking much about the gameplay, and I won't, but it is actually happenstance the Perino is an excellent weapon and is actually my favorite defensive gun, but not the defensive variant, because the defensive variant is awful. The Thompson, while having a simplistic looking animation compared to other weapons on this list, is actually very satisfying to use, purely because of its fire rate and sound, and also that reciprocating charging handle on the top, which is so satisfying to watch. The textures on the weapon are also of very high quality. Well, all of them are, even though you may notice that some are quite low res. This is actually a strange bug that occurs with the GTX 970 when using ultra textures, probably something to do with the whole 3.5 gig VRAM, but it only occurs when using a weapon skin. Regardless, the way the Thompson feels, recoils and reloads is very satisfying in Battlefield 1, and perhaps me associated Thompson more with World War II, it is quite interesting to see it in a World War I setting, especially in this configuration. In fact, this configuration just reminds me of the sort of prototype weird looking Thompson found in the earlier Serious Sam games, which is very funny indeed. But in terms of pure fun, the Annihilator is certainly up there. If you got that reference, then you either watch a particular channel or are, or perhaps both, a great war nerd. The Browning automatic rifle in Battlefield 1 is another weapon that you might associate with World War II, but actually saw its start in World War I. In fact, having both the World War II and World War I versions of Battlefield 1, you can actually tell that there are some differences between the two. The World War I BIR is actually the better looking one in my opinion because of the chunkier handguard and also, well, the lack of a bipod. In Battlefield 1, of course, the telescopic version comes with a bipod, as does the weird BAR 1918 A2, which was added as a pre-order bonus for Battlefield 5. The reason I like the BR a lot is similar to the Annihilator in that it is a weapon I associate with World War II rather than World War I, and more importantly, it is fantastic to use. Again, I am not speaking about its statistics, but rather just the way it feels. I like the way it is animated, especially the reload animation, where you can actually briefly see the character pressing the magazine release button, which is located in the trigger guard. This detail is actually present in another World War I game, which is Verdun, though in that game the animation, while looking a bit more stiff, considering the budget restraints compared to Battlefield 1, you can actually tell that the button is being pressed more readily in Verdun. But it's nice that Battlefield 1 incorporated this feature without slowing down the reload too much, which would render this weapon rather pointless in its role, or rather not as effective, since the BAR in Battlefield 1 is intended more as sort of an assault rifle role like the Hewitt. Regardless, the standout features other than its good looks and particularly nice animations is its sound. The sound on the BAR sounds beastly and is actually what I think a BAR sounds like when fired in fully automatic. Doesn't need to be that in real life, but in game it sounds fantastic and beastly and is an intimidating weapon to be against. Speaking of intimidating, the Shell Shot is probably, or well, not probably, the best sounding LMG in the entire game, if not one of the best sounding weapons in the whole game. This is because its very chunky metallic sounding firing pairs very nicely with its very low fire rate, high damage per shot and very high vertical recoil. The Shell Shot always had a special place in my heart because I remember seeing an image of it a long time ago in a book I was given to me by my grandfather when I was very young, and I always wanted to see it in a video game. Now that Battlefield 1's DLC or the French DLC came about and brought forth the Shell Shot onto the battlefield, I was very happy with its inclusion, not simply due to the statistics, but also due to the feel. I will never forget logging onto the city and using the Shell Shot for the first time. It is simply a transcendent experience just using this gun. It is unbelievably satisfying to nail kill after kill with this weapon, especially because of the firing sound and also the damage per shot. What is more interesting is its animations, which, while the gun itself is fairly simplistic looking, the magazine was intentionally switched to the right side so you could see it depleting with each shot. It's a very nice detail and it's a very good example of how DICE commits to just making their guns look flashy and fun to use. Another small detail that you may not notice is that the long recoil operation, to which the barrel and bolt assembly move back and forth together, is actually visible when you're bipoded. The Xiao Xiao is probably the most satisfying gun overall in Battlefield 1, at least for me, though with so many nice weapons it's very hard to compare. So to prevent this video from dragging on far too long, I've decided to make it a two-part thing where I will release the other weapons in a separate video. As an extra, perhaps I will add an additional gun by community request, so if you want to see a weapon make it to the list, hopefully it's not one I have included, I will make it so. This has been DanMiniGun, and you've been watching my fanboyism on Battlefield 1, and perhaps I would call it a return to greatness because I really like Battlefield 1 and I really want Battlefield 5 to improve a bit more because right now I am a little frustrated with the game and I'm kind of bored with it. And it's surprising because I've played Battlefield 1 a lot and I'm not bored with it. And I wasn't really bored with it when I quit for Battlefield 5. Sure, I stopped for a week or so at times, but that's normal. So without further ado, I'll see you on part 2.